What makes you cry during a sad movie? Why does your heart race when you're nervous? Why do we even have emotions? Emotions aren't just feelings, they're powerful signals from the brain that help us survive, connect, and make sense of the world. Psychologists define emotion as a complex response involving three parts: a subjective experience, how it feels to you internally; a physiological response, like increased heart rate or sweating; a behavioral expression, like smiling, frowning, or running away. Let's break that down. When you see a bear in the woods, you feel fear. That's the subjective part, the feeling of being afraid. Your heart races, your muscles tense, that's the physiological part. And you might freeze, scream, or run, that's the behavioral part. But where do emotions come from? One of the earliest theories came from William James and Carl Lang in the late 1800s. They said, "We don't cry because we're sad because we cry." In other words, the James Lang theory argued that emotions come after our body reacts. First your body changes, then you feel the emotion. Later, Walter Cannon and Philip Bard disagreed. They believed the brain triggers body reactions and emotions at the same time. This became the Cannon-Bard theory. Then came the Schachter-Singer two-factor theory in 1962. It says we experience emotion based on two things: a physical response, and our interpretation of what's happening. For example, if your heart races in a dark alley, you might label it as fear. But if your heart races on a roller coaster, you might label it as excitement. This shows that context and interpretation play a huge role in how we feel. So, what part of the brain is in charge of all this? The amygdala is one key player. It helps process emotions, especially fear. In a famous study by Joseph Ledoux, rats with damaged amygdalas didn't show fear responses to threats. Another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, helps us regulate emotions, deciding how to respond or when to calm down. And the insula, a less well-known region, helps us feel disgust and internal sensations like a racing heart or butterflies in the stomach. Now, let's talk about universal emotions. In the 1970s, psychologist Paul Ekman traveled around the world to study facial expressions, including to isolated tribes with no exposure to Western media. He found that people everywhere recognize the same 6 basic emotions: happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, disgust. These are thought to be evolutionary, built into us to help us survive. For example, fear helps us avoid danger. Anger can protect us from threats. Disgust keeps us from eating harmful food. Happiness encourages bonding and cooperation. But emotions don't just protect us, they also communicate. A smile tells others you're friendly. A frown signals distress. This helps us connect, empathize, and respond to others' needs. Still, emotions can be confusing. Sometimes we feel two at once, like being both nervous and excited before a performance. Other times, emotions linger for hours or even days. And sometimes, we try to hide how we really feel. This is called emotion regulation, and it's a skill that develops over time. There are healthy ways to regulate emotions, like reframing a situation. This challenge is an opportunity, talking to someone, taking deep breaths to calm your nervous system in unhealthy ways, like ignoring feelings or using substances to numb them. Research shows that people who can identify and manage their emotions tend to have better mental health, relationships, and even physical health. This ability is called emotional intelligence. So in short, emotions may feel mysterious, but they're rooted in biology, shaped by experience, and essential for navigating life. In the next video, we'll explore the foundations of how we learn, from conditioning to reinforcement to habits. Because emotions guide us, but learning shapes us.